says starting. Okay, so hi everyone. We are live with Educate Girls Globally, and we are going to be talking to Lawrence Checkering and Anjula Tyagi. And we'll just first introduce ourselves, and then we'll ask our guests to introduce them. So my name is Rabia Javed, and I'm a sophomore at Middlebury College, and I'm a history and economics major. I've been really interested in the education of girls, especially because I'm from Pakistan, and girls have been constantly denied education in that part of the world. I've been really interested in how we can join forces to educate girls globally, especially in areas where they're not given the right to education. So I'm really excited for today's session, and now I'm going to let Gabby.
Hi, I'm Gabby Fuentes. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I am also a sophomore here at Middlebury College as a psychology major. And I too have worked with young girls in my community, particularly in a neighborhood in Chicago called Pilsen, which is a predominantly Mexican-American neighborhood that's facing a lot of challenges. So this past summer, I went back and launched a dance program. It was more like a women's empowerment program through movement. It was a lot of fun, so I'm really excited to see how advice from organizations and experienced people like you can help me propel the initiative that I started back home in Chicago.
So now, Lori, you first, and then Angela, you. Would you kindly introduce yourselves and tell us your background and your role in the organization Educate Girls Globally?
I'm Lori Chickering. I am president and founder of Educate Girls Globally. I founded the organization 15 years ago because my professional background is in starting a series of public policy organizations whose purpose is to change what governments do. And one of the great needs in this whole area is that most of the most innovative work, social entrepreneurship, is done in independent schools by people who avoid government programs. We focus our entire program on reforming government schools and partnering with them, which allows us to operate at very large scales and very low costs, and has a prospect of making really large changes even in big countries like Pakistan and India.
Okay.
Hi. I'm Angela Tyagi, and I'm Executive Director with Educate Girls Globally. My background specifically is in education and more focused on improving education for girls in schools, primarily in the public schools, and we are trying to reform the public school systems, in fact. So a lot of our work actually focuses on changing the policy issues, reforming the policy, and trying to help the governments change their policies and come up with better programs to support education of girls. One most important reason why we do is because we consider girls' education as the most important thing even before we could think about educating the boys. As in most developing countries, girls have less opportunities and access to education. So that's the key focus of our organization. And I've been working with Educate Girls Globally for about over 10 years now. We started our first program in northern part of India, and ever since then I'm there, and we're constantly working towards improving the education for girls in public school systems in the developing countries.
Okay. Well, thank you. So we're going to get to the question part of this discussion. So
yeah. So first of all, could you both sort of highlight for us what the organization is, Educate for Girls Globally, and how did it get started, and where is it right now?
Most education reform efforts focus on the supply side of education. They focus on teacher training, on curriculum, on things having to do with improving the schools and the facilities. Our program is a holistic program that recognizes that, especially when you're dealing with the poorest parts of populations, the most deprived parts, you have to pay a lot of attention to the demand side. You have to realize, for instance, that tribal girls in rural parts of India are brought up to be afraid to speak up in front of boys, and this gives them tremendously limits their ability to feel confidence in education. So our program is a general empowerment program that empowers whole communities to support education and focus especially on girls to make them feel that they have a right to education and they can succeed in it. So our greatest effects, our greatest impact in terms of learning gains have been on tribal girls for that reason.
Okay, and Angela, could you also basically highlight for us where Educate Girls Globally is right now? What are you guys doing right now?
Well, one of the things that I would like to add to what Lori said just now is the key concept or the principle on which the whole program that we have created is based on. We in fact realized long time ago when we actually started the program and thought of creating a program model, in fact, that when it comes to public education system, communities do not really take interest. They seem to have no interest in the public schools. um, it looks like a common property is no one's property, and that kind of feeling we faced, we found in the communities that we started working with. So the most important thing for us was to actually create a sense of ownership within the communities, so they start thinking about the schools. They start thinking that the schools actually belong to them and they have something to do with the schools. I still remember our initial meetings with the communities when we would go and talk to people, and then the first question that we would start with, we would organize these meetings in the rural areas, near the school campus, or sometimes even in the school campus. And the first question that we would ask them would be, okay, who do you think this school belongs to? And I still remember it took them several minutes before they could even think of giving us the answer that we were expecting. And sometimes the communities wouldn't even give us the answer. They would say, this school belongs to government, or this school belongs to a certain management. But they would never say, this school belongs to us. So that was a real major challenge, and therefore we started building all our programs towards a core principle, that's community mobilization and creating a sense of ownership among the communities for improving the schools. Now, I would like to also tell you how this EGG principle actually helped us get the communities to the point where they would say, yes, we would like our daughters to go into the schools. Normally what you see in the developing countries, and especially in traditional communities, that they are always biased towards girls' education. They may not want the girls to go to schools, or then they do not really encourage the girls to go to schools. But when it comes to boys, they even look for private schools. They're willing to pay for the cost of educating a boy, but not the girl. So it would become easy for us once they accepted that the schools belong to them and they have to do something with the school. They would this helped them to go through a process of self-realization that would actually help them think about, why not girls? Why educate boys only? Why not girls? And what would it bring to the entire society if the girls were also educated? And then they started thinking about the positive aspects of educating a girl. So so this is one core principle of our program and our organization. We believe in organizing the communities and making sure that the communities are not dependent upon anyone, and that actually has helped us bring sustainability into our program. Because even if we leave, when we quit the particular area that we are working, we see that the communities, because it's not about providing them with material things. It's all about providing them with capabilities, giving them the strength to start thinking positively and start working towards a better tomorrow. So they sustain those thoughts, and they continue to work towards improving their schools as well as their societies. Um, so I'm sorry, what did you ask a question, Rabia? I
Yeah.
think you had a question when I started talking. What was that? Can you
Yeah, it
repeat
was
your question, please?
basically, I was just wondering, Educate Girls Globally has been going on for 10 years, but where are you exactly working right now? And what are you doing right now as of today?
We one of the things that we believe is that because we're working with governments and the program has a potential of working at very large scales. Our first program was in Rajasthan, the most tribal state in India, and we were in 2 whole districts in Rajasthan, nearly 6,000 schools serving 590,000 children. The program is set up that when you change the culture of a school in a village, that after 2 years, it's supposed to be able to go on and benefit future generations of kids, not just the kids currently in school. And the key to it really is turning passive, fatalistic, traditional villages of people who don't believe they can even fundamentally control their own lives and encourage them to become social entrepreneurs themselves, so that the whole culture of the village becomes entrepreneurial in thinking about how to change the school, how to change the village, how to change their lives. Because without that, you can't really have development. An example of how powerful this is, we give no money to people. Empowerment is our only currency. And in 500 schools serving 70,000 children, we had, after 2 years, 178 schools had clean water that had no clean water before. We gave them no money to do this. We didn't even encourage them to do it. We just created a space to encourage them to decide what the school needed and what could they do to make it better. The number of schools with toilet facilities for girls increased from 45% to 70% in 2 years, and a whole variety of other improvements. We are now working in secondary schools in northern India, and our ambition really is to get governments to embrace our model for every school in their jurisdiction. And we're working in a small state in the north now, in 50 schools serving 25,000 children, about 2/3 of them girls. But the aim, we're going to expand to 500 schools sometime starting in the next year. And the model allows you to have amazing scale increases in scale because the real workers in the program, the people really making it work, are the people. They're not us. We're just creating spaces for them and giving them tools to do it. And the government bureaucrats themselves are becoming entrepreneurs also, because they are also empowered by this process. When Angela was talking about ownership is the key to everything. It's a key even to caring. The reason nobody cares about government schools is that no one owns them. And the teachers don't own them, the bureaucrats don't own them. Everybody knows this is a major public health program because they're all depressed, sitting around following rules. You empower everybody, and everybody comes together, and you get magic. We are now developing a model that we will soon be working with the Federal Ministry of Education in New Delhi. Angela is probably going to cringe at what I'm about to say because I'm going to overstate where we are on this. But the vision of it is pretty clear, that the Federal Ministry of Education in New Delhi has a major $15 billion initiative to reform every secondary school in India. And our program, it's as if they wrote this thing out of our program. And our program, we're going to set up demonstration projects for this, but that's our aim. we have a major partner in Africa called Africare that is working in 27 countries. We are launching our first project in Zambia there with plans to expand it to other countries. We have a second project we're working on with them in Liberia on education and employment, how to make schools more effective in giving kids tools to produce income for themselves. And our ambition is really to be working in 5 years or 10 years in 24 countries with reaching vast numbers of people, because the bureaucrats themselves are going to expand this thing. They want to do it. Because they get empowered too, and they get to be alive. That's really basically what this is about.
Yeah. So, oh, Angela, do you have
please
something
go
else to add?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
So,
I know you're hoping for sound bites here, and Angela and I are both talking at such excessive length. All I can say is that I hope that you will forgive us for the enthusiasm we feel for this program and for its potential in bringing change to the world, even if it's wrecking your theatrical imperative of sound bites.
Thank you so much for this. I kind of want to touch back. I'm curious in terms of the sustainability aspect. I'm curious how you've decided, like what communities you've decided to work with, how that kind of got started, and how the involvement with the community initiate, and kind of this idea of sustainability. What communities or what shift in communities have you seen these girls graduate from and go back, and what kind of workplace are they currently in? What has the organization EGG provided for the girls? Like what shift can you say that you've seen, and how is that sustainable?
Okay, let me take you back a little bit to the history and to help you understand how we actually created the entire program model. We in fact started with primary schools, and so one of the things that Lori talked about is scaling, and that's the beauty of our program. Uh, it scales up to really large numbers, and that too really fast. I, in particular, haven't seen any other program going to that large number in that limited time frame. As Lori said just now, that currently we have a program. It's a pilot project that's in a North Indian state, and it's right now in just 50 schools. But pretty soon, it's going to be into 500 schools, which is 10 times. So within 2 years, we have this program has the capability of going to multiplying 10 times. We work in primary schools. That's where we started, and the first pilot that we started was in India. And I don't think there was anything in particular about choosing India, except that, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, except that Lori visited India, right? And that.
Well, what happened was I wanted originally to work in Pakistan,
Okay.
but it's a long story that it could easily consume the rest of our time together. But what happened was that we had a model that would have failed, and 9/11 came and eliminated Pakistan. So we had to go next door, and I found a program working out of Bangalore in the south that was doing many of these things, and I went straight there and saw what they were doing, creating miracles in very traditional villages. And I just said that this is what we're going to do. And I went to the north, and that's where Angela and I met, and we started working in this North Indian state.
So this North Indian state called Uttarakhand. We picked up few schools, say about 100 schools, and we launched the program in about 5 districts, and with very few people, just a small team of 5 people, we started into those primary schools. The other important thing that I must tell you, that we do not work as an independent organization. We always work in collaboration with Ministry of Education. So the first thing that we would do when we enter a place is to get an agreement in place with the Ministry of Education.
Right.
And and having worked for such a long time in this social field, I would definitely like to say that this has always helped. Most people and most organizations, in fact, feel that it's really tough to work with bureaucrats. But we believe unless you change their way of thinking and their way of working, how would you even think of bringing in sustainability? Because we are not there to compete with them. We are not there to paralyze them. We are there to actually help them realize that what they are supposed to do is not being done. So we that's one reason we build a real good healthy relationship with the ministry and the bureaucrats around. So then there is a sense of positiveness between our organization people and the ministry people, and we really start helping each other. Yes, it's tough, but it's doable. Um, so when we started in about 2002, that's when we started in this small state, and then we expanded to about 1,400 school within 2 years. And it was interesting that whatever we did, uh, we were actually, because of all that was done there, we were invited by another state in Rajasthan, and we became part of the Rajasthan Education Initiative. And Laurie's already told you the number of schools that we are currently working in Rajasthan, and this is growing. Now we are working on another set of schools. We just wanted to see whether the same approach would work in secondary schools or not. So this project has recently been started in the same North Indian state, Uttarakhand. And now your question was what exactly we do for the girls and what these girls do once they graduate.
Yeah.
So uh, in the primary schools, the most important thing that we do in our program is mobilize the communities. We want the communities to get involved. So we encourage them, we inspire them, we educate them, we get them involved to really start thinking about the schools and to look into the problems that a school is going through, to look into the problems that the communities have, and the reasons why they're not letting their girls go to school, the reasons why the girls, even if they go to school, they drop out. There are multiple reasons why a girl drops out from school. So we want the communities to look into all those issues, all those problems, and try to get together as a community to really start thinking about problems and resolving them. So these are the village meetings, and these are meetings that are held in the school and in the villages as well, where community people get together, and even the girls come into those meetings. And sometimes we have had situations wherein girls would stand up and say, "We want to go to school." And we have had teachers in those meetings who would just come up and get the girls enrolled on the spot. This sometimes happens in just one meeting. Sometimes it might take a little longer, but 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 it happens. So once the community gets involved, they start coming up with plans that are called action plans. So then they know, yes, of course, the first thing that they always think about is infrastructure. They start thinking about, oh, we don't have boundary wall, we don't have water, we don't have sanitation, we don't have toilets for girls. But those are the things that are visible. So they think about those problems. They try to resolve those problems. EGG as such never offers any money to come up with a solution for these problems. So they have to look around. And we know that there are resources. The only thing that they do not know is they don't realize that they have the resources and they can utilize those resources. We only help them realize that they have the strength. They can find out the problems, they can resolve, and they have the resources to actually come up with the solutions. So there are other components of our program, which
Uh,
another important one is the girls' parliament. This particular program is all about um, uh, supporting the girls and offering them life skills training, which are really really important. So most of these girls we found were not confident enough. They lacked communication skills. They were not able to talk. they were not able to represent themselves or even say no to something that they do not like. So this Girls Parliament actually is a program that offers them an opportunity to build several skills that they might need when they grow up and as an adult and 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 start facing real life challenges.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
So Angela and Laurie, I'm listening to you and it's great talking to you guys. But one thing that constantly bothers me is that, education of girls is really important, but the mindsets of the communities are not changing. So, we recently read a book in our class called Behind the Beautiful Forevers, and in that, a girl, a character, is, she's educated, she goes to the best college in India, but when she comes back to her community, she's forced to, just be married off like all other Indian girls, like some other Indian girls who are not educated. So how do you deal with that problem of changing the mindset of the community? Because a girl can be educated, and then she can go back to her community and be more frustrated because she's not getting anything out of that education. She's just being forced to, being married, or, she's not given her rights, or, she's not able to use that education because the mindset of the community has not changed. How do you hope to, within your organization, how do you hope to overcome this challenge that girls face?
Well, I slightly differ in that because everything is changing. Change is scientific. You cannot stop the change. But the only thing is how do you measure the change? So if a girl if a girl graduated from high school and then she's not allowed to go to college, that doesn't mean that community is not changing. We see this change every time, but it could be more or less. People see change only when it's more, when it's clearly visible. Okay, every girl in a particular village is allowed to go to school. That's when people say, okay, it's a change. But change is not all the time drastic. So change is a slow process. And if you observe the community really closely, then you'll see, yes, some part of it is always changing. Somewhere there is always a little bit of change. So change accumulates when people see, oh, all of a sudden everything has changed. But it's not like not always is all of a sudden everything has changed. So working with the community, you have to be patient.
Mm,
That's another key thing. You cannot expect miracles. We have had situations wherein community would not even respond for 6 months. We would go all the time, organize meetings, our people meet them, organize meetings, and they won't even honor any single of those meetings. It's not just about communities who are illiterate. Most of them are not educated or well educated, or sometimes there are traditional situations, or sometimes there are cultures that do not let them accept the change readily. But I'm also talking about the school community, which actually is the teachers who are educated, and we all of us actually expect them not to be following a cultural tradition which actually affects the girls badly. But there are still some teachers who do believe in that. Let me give you an example from the state where we are working now. This is Uttarakhand. um, Girls actually, when they come to high school, they actually are given a choice between math and home science. Not many people know what home science is, but it's mostly about organizing your household, cooking, a little bit about nutrition, a little bit about decorating your house, which every girl does by itself. I don't think she needs a lesson in home science, but it's really easy. Every girl can get through that particular course. So when I talk to the department people about why do you have this choice situation for girls and not for boys. So math is necessary, is compulsory for boys, but girls get a choice because they believe girls are bad at math, they cannot do math. So even a subject becomes gender biased. So this is where we have to. Now, if we believe, if we don't believe in having patience and dealing with these situations patiently, then we create a sort of misunderstanding between us and the department. We cannot change the situation drastically. But I know that at least ever since we started talking to them about this has become a topic of discussion among their meetings. I'm talking about the Ministry of Education. They've now started thinking, the State Ministry of Education has now started talking about this, whether they should actually continue with this choice or discontinue and allow everybody to have either math or everybody should get choice. So this is at least something is at least happening, and I'm sure within a year or two they'll actually make a policy change, which will be a change when, and that's the time when it will become visible.
In terms of the marriage age of girls, one of the most powerful patterns of evidence about the importance of educating girls is that it postpones marriage. The longer girls stay in school, the longer they avoid marriage, and the more options are opened up to them. And I think, as Angela said, these things don't happen instantly, but there are examples of shifts in cultural attitudes that are tremendously powerful, and so powerful, in fact, and happen so quickly that it's really almost hard to process them. One of the places I was greatly influenced by in the early days of Educate Girls Globally was a program set up by UNICEF in Upper Egypt, in the most traditional tribal Islamic part of Upper Egypt, around the city of Asyut. And it was an area so traditional that before the first schools went in there, the men wouldn't allow the girls to leave their homes, many of them. And after 4 or 5 years, the schools were so successful, and the men were actively involved in the schools, that many of the same men who would not let their girls out of their homes said they would let their girls go to Cairo to college. I mean, it totally changed their worldview and their sense of possibility, not only for themselves but for their girls. So we can't pretend doing this program to solve every problem, or to do it all instantly. But we think that education is the key to an awful lot of it, and empowerment of girls and also of communities is going to open up people's sense of possibility in a whole variety of ways that will change the life in these places forever.
Thank you. So it sounds like sometimes where you're talking about like measuring change and measuring improvement, if you will, can kind of be challenging. So I guess my follow-up question is, what are the main challenges that your organization faces? And maybe in the past, the challenges, maybe getting through to a community was a challenge. And what were the steps that your organization took to overcome them?
Angela, I'd be interested to hear your comments about that.
So let me tell you, government itself is a challenge. Dealing with governments is a challenge.
Yeah.
We are working with government schools. When it comes to private schools, it's easy because all of them actually are looking for perfection. They all want everything to go well because it's a business. When it comes to government schools, as I said, a common property is no one's property. This is a very common feeling that when you talk about anything that is public property, so nobody takes care of it, and that's the same situation in government schools. So one of the things that we have to always overcome is how do we create a good relationship with the ministry people, so they are always helpful, they're supporting, they're collaborating with us, they're listening to us, and they're helping us bring in the change or implement whatever we want to implement in the schools. That's one thing. Next, we come to the communities. Since our key focus again is to go into the schools through the communities. We don't want to go into the schools as EGG. We want to go there as a community. Now, each community has its own culture, has its own traditional practices. And if you are suggesting them something that's not acceptable to their general rules, then you're likely to face some kind of rejection. And we have had those situations where in some areas we have had real real good acceptance momentarily. I mean, it did not even take us a long time to get into the communities and get them along with us and make them understand what we wanted them to. But then we have also faced rejections. We have also faced situations where a parent would try to even kill her daughter because she said in the meeting, she said, I want to go to school. And he would say, okay, do you want to go to school? I'm right away going to kill you. How dare you say that? So these are the, the extreme situations wherein but we had to handle these things with patience. As I said, it takes time. People do understand because everybody is human. It's all about connection. We are not doing any magic. We are not doing any miracle. It's all about connection. How you connect to the community. Are you being accepted by the community as an insider, or you always remained as an outsider? So this is what matters a lot. Um, Next, I don't know, Laurie, would you like to talk about the financial challenges that every organization always had? So that's always there.
I think that goes with this kind of work. I would really say, though, that one of the indicators of how powerfully governments are supporting our program and government support is so crucial to our success is that governments are starting to pay for it. In fact, in Rajasthan, they're paying about 40% of the cost of the program. They'd be paying more in the north, but they had a big disaster last year that has really limited that ability. My own strong belief is that within 5 years or some period of time, when people realize what we've done and realize that the incredible changes we're able to create in these schools for a tiny fraction of the budget, public budget for these schools, that governments will pay the entire cost of our program, and that government bureaucrats will be the ones that really scale it. Rajasthan has 55 million people in it. This is an enormous, middle-sized state in India, but enormous in relation to many countries in the world. So trying to imagine how every school in Rajasthan could have our program is only possible if we can imagine that we can empower the governments themselves and the government bureaucrats to carry the message and become social entrepreneurs. The hopeful part of it is that being an entrepreneur, in a way, allows people to be alive in a way that they're not alive when they're just going through the motions and just following rules and doing these things. And our program creates a culture and tools for people to be social entrepreneurs and allows them to be alive. And I think for that reason, there's really no opposition to our program. The one challenge that I think it needs to be mentioned, which Angela touched on for a moment, is that the local cultures from village to village can vary, and in the most traditional parts of any country, the most tribal and where the traditional roles, are most powerful, limiting people's actions and limiting their freedom. The community and the girls will not be. We can't just waltz into one of these communities and have them want to take up our program, because the girls people don't feel safe standing up in front of a public meeting, and the traditional structure is really holding it all down. And I would say, however, that our program works in every single community, but only because in some places we have to spend a long period of time of social development, encouraging trust and encouraging people to feel safe. And sometimes this takes up to a year in places, but in every single community it works, because in every single community the primal desire to be alive is so powerful in people, and the primal desire of people to connect with each other and work together and work for a better life is so powerful.
Yeah, I think, Laurie, that leads me to a perfect segue into the next question, which is, what is the vision of your organization? Because it's called Educate Girls Globally, which means that, it should be aimed at educating girls in every part of the world. But as you know, there are many challenges in different places around the world. So how do you see your vision of the organization, and how do you hope to reach into communities that it's very hard to reach into?
Well, we started in India, in Rajasthan, the most tribal state in India. The government, to give you a sense of this, how difficult this state is, most people from India almost laugh at the idea that we tried to work in Rajasthan because they regard it as so traditional and so culturally opposed to this kind of thing. But the government, the Federal Ministry of Education, designated 26 districts in India as the most difficult, the most male-dominated districts in the whole country. And 9 of these districts are in Rajasthan, which has only 5% of the population of the country. They assigned to us to work in the furthest districts from the capital, which is to say right in the hardest part of all of India. And the program was incredibly powerful. It worked everywhere, everywhere. And so in terms of our ambitions are to work in the most difficult places, to show that you don't have to write off the most difficult places, that you can go right at the most difficult places, and that you can get amazing results if you focus people on empowerment rather than equality. There's a general support for equality that is impossible for people, and it just makes people feel defeated in the outset. You empower people, and that really makes them feel equal because they really can stand up and work together. And that is our experience in every single place we've worked. Our main focus has been on South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa because those are the 2 regions of the world where educating girls has lagged the most. We started in South Asia. I want to go back to Pakistan, and we haven't found the way to do that, but we would love, Ravaya, for any suggestions you might have about that. Another thing that we're looking to do is to try and encourage other NGOs working in places to adopt our method, our model, and work and use it in their work, because we think that it can greatly increase the impact of what many people are doing. The heart of this really is empowering the poorest people themselves to become powerful agents of change. So it isn't just about experts going in and fixing deprived people. It's empowering them to become the main instruments of change. And that's the heart of what we do. In Uganda, we are actively now negotiating with an organization that's about to go into 300 government schools there, and we're actively talking to them about training their people and having them do that. We had some conversations with a very large NGO in Pakistan, actually, about that. It hasn't happened. But this is a major objective that we have, to share what we have, because we think that it should be in 24 countries and operating at scales that are really unfathomable for people. The important thing is that the governments themselves want to do this. We're writing agreements with the governments that we're going to train their people in this so that they can become social entrepreneurs and they can become the carriers of this. And this really will make scales and accomplishments possible that people can hardly imagine.
So throughout our entire conversation, you've been giving us such good ideas about social entrepreneurship, even without us asking. Like Angela, you talked about, having patience when you're working with communities, and Lawrence, you talked about collaborating with other communities. Are there any other Is there any other advice that you would like to give social entrepreneurs, which you have learned while working in this field? You've worked closely with, as Laura, you said, in hard communities where it's very hard to get into, and all of us aspire to do some kind of work in places that are difficult to work in. So, are there some things that you learned that you would like to share with us?
Well, one thing I would say is that I think there are too much of the social entrepreneur movement is focused on supporting people who do wonderful work in very small venues, and whose work never really reaches anybody except people lucky enough to be near the social entrepreneurs. The key to scale and sustainability is government, and that I think a lot more emphasis should be placed on promoting social and political entrepreneurship to create spaces where disempowered bureaucrats and depressed bureaucrats can become alive and become social entrepreneurs, because that's when you really will start making creating change on an extraordinary scale. That's the main sort of thought I have about this. Angela, what do you think?
That's true, and I was just going to add to what you said, that also actually establishes the sustainability part of any program that you do. And I've always believed that before you even think of starting a program, you have to think about how would this program survive when you are gone. Mostly what we have noticed that organizations get into a place, start a program, and they have a time frame. Once the time frame is over and they're gone, the program is gone as well. Um, so it doesn't really sustain itself. If you go there after like 5 or 10 years, you see nothing, no imprints of the program are left. And that's one reason why we believe in supporting the governments and making sure that people and government both are empowered to the extent that they are able to become carriers of our approach and our principles, and continue with all those programs that we help them initiate.
The the sustainability part of this is crucial to it. Our program is extraordinarily efficient. Donor-driven education programs cost $100 per child and more for the 4-year pilot project before the money runs out, because they don't transfer the lessons into governments and the program dies. Our program costs about $5 a child for 2 years, and when we have not yet proven sustainability, but when we do, the cost of our program will be the interest on $5 going into the future. And the key to it, I think, is to leave, create a sense of presence after the program's over that will sustain people, and because there's the real tools of sustainability are in the communities themselves, because they have every reason to want to do it. But you can't just leave them and without watching out and making sure. And for a tiny fraction of the original cost, we know that we can prove sustainability working with the governments, and we will work very hard to accomplish that.
Yeah, I really like that idea of presence, and I think, Angela, you made a really good point earlier that I very much agree with, about having a community engage you. We often talk about in our course, social entrepreneurship and the liberal arts, about engaging the world. But can you talk a little bit more about how one is engaged by a community? What are the steps or the characteristics that one needs to think about before going into a community, whether it being their own community or one that is very different from the one that they are used to?
Well, it actually it doesn't really matter which community you are going to go to. So it totally depends upon the need. Unless you have a need assessment, well, you can't simply go and impose your program into a community. That's one very crucial, very important thing, that you have to make sure that you're not imposing something on the community. Whatever you do has to be a need-based, a need-driven, demand-driven program. Unless the community needs that, it's just going to go a waste, and the acceptance would be really, really low. And so that's one important thing. Before you design a program, before you think of choosing a place to actually implement a program, you need to make sure that you understand the community and its needs and its capacities really well. And that's when you know that, okay, this is what you can do, and this is the extent to which you can expect from the community, and these are the skills that you need to make sure that the community has, or you do something to build those skills into the community. So
I'd
when you
like
go
to.
up, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say the same thing, just say it in slightly different words. I think an awful lot of work in the social sector is about the people doing the work. It's about them rather than the people they're trying to help. Our focus is really, it's all about them, not about us. And it's about creating a space in which they get to define what they think is important for them, and that we can give them tools to help them accomplish that. But if you get distracted from that, and you start believing that it's about you and you're going to go and save anybody, you're out of business. They're going to just they're not going to pay any attention, because you've done nothing to honor them and to create a stake as owners in the solution. And that's the key to it, from what Angela said, from almost the first words out of her mouth.
Okay. So throughout the entire conversation, we've been talking about your organization and how important it is to educate girls. But as a sort of final question, we're going to ask you the main question, which is, why do you think educating girls is so important? What value do you see in it? And why do you think everyone in the world should believe that all the girls in the world should be educated?
So you want
Because all the evidence is that educated women are the most powerful agents of social change in the world. Every problem that you can name, from poverty to education to health, the health of both boys and girls is much more a function of the mother's education than the father's. Peace. There's no problem that really is not furthered by, and part of it is getting education of women equal to men. But the plain fact is that the educated women will be far more important in solving all these problems than the men. I'm sorry to say, as a man. Nevertheless, that's the reality of it. It's unmistakable.
Let me tell you what I heard in a village while conducting a meeting, and this is a question that I always was thinking of, and there are a lot of answers that you get into articles, and a lot of people say so much about it, why educating girls is more important. But I really liked this answer, and I would like to share this with everybody who's listening. So this woman who happened to be completely illiterate, and she was in our meeting, and while talking, one of our coordinators brought up this question: why do you think educating girls is important? Why should we even educate our girls? And she said, well, it's so simple. Boys take care of only one family, and girls will take care of two families. While she's at home, she's taking care of her parents' family. When she goes away, she's taking care of her in-laws' family. So this is more important. She's doing double the work. So she needs to be educated more than boys. So I actually like this layman answer too, and it's really true that girls play a really important role when it comes to upbringing of the future generation, or it comes to taking care of a household. This is why I'm bringing up the question of taking care of a household, or upbringing of kids, because everybody in the world thinks that this is the most important role that a woman has to play. So even if we consider that this is the most important role that a woman has to play, even from that point of view, it's very important that we educate our girls, so they can take care of the future generation, which obviously will be well educated and better off, and they can also take care of their households when they are simply into household roles. Besides that, of course, as a human being, they have much more to give to the society if they are well educated, and they have the skills those are needed by the workforce. Then of course they can add on so much to the workforce, and we, in fact, by educating them, we double the strength of our workforce. So
Okay, so
I wanted to tell an anecdote,
yeah.
which played a powerful role in getting me interested in this subject when I started out 15 years ago. I never had any particular interest in in women's issues, except that I thought women deserved to have a chance and all of that. But it was really something that it was not. I wasn't really focused on. And the idea of educating girls as a silver bullet of development was made powerfully clear to me when I did a project and I heard the deputy director of the Grameen Bank who was working on the project with me talked about how the bank, which originally had no special focus on girls, almost all of their original loans were to men, and how they changed, and now today it's of course widely known that they lend mostly to women. Mm-hmm. He said that in their experience they found that when men got a chance, when men got a chance, they started when women got a chance. No, I'm sorry. When men got a chance, they started dreaming about themselves, and when women got a chance, they started dreaming about the family and the community and what they could give back. And that essential insight really explains why women play such a much larger role in every dimension of collective action to make the world better.
Okay. Well, we have a few minutes left, so if you would like to say anything, just a few sentences lastly for us, or why this organization means so much to you, then we're going to let you do that now.
Angela, you're on.
I think it's been great talking to you, and I would say that this effort by your institute is really amazing, and this has helped us um, talk about our program and our vision and mission, and I hope that we connect to a lot of people through these kind of initiatives. So in a way, you are also supporting our cause and helping us um, to expand our program and our approach and our vision. So I would like to thank your institute and Rebecca and Gabby, both of you, for conducting such a wonderful session with us.
Thank you.
And we would like to stay connected to both of you as well as your institute, and would like to have many more students from your institute connect to us for supporting our cause.
I agree with everything Angela said, and I have one grubby practical thing I want to ask you, and that is to pass on the keys to the magic on Friday when we have to try and key into this. What little button or what secret thing we can do to get in this without engaging your experts for a period of hours to try to get us back in.
All right, sounds good. Well, it was great having you both. Thank you so much. I definitely had a great time talking to you.
So did I. It was really nice talking to you. So we're going to stop.
Good.
Broadcast now.